Can you please identify the victim of this crime?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
True or false? I did nothing, you did everything, and I am the one committing the criminal act. Is that correct? For this crime to exist requires me to do nothing and for you to do everything. And this is short, so true or false? All I have to do to be accused of being a criminal, taken all the way to the jury, is absolutely nothing. Is that true or false?
Objection.
Sustained. I take you on your word that you are not video recording or recording these proceedings, but it is a little disconcerting with the camera in your pocket and facing out. That would be just don't want the jurors to be worried about whether or not they're being recorded. So
what you're about to watch is one of the most unhinged, legally confused, and unintentionally hilarious courtroom disasters ever recorded. This case involves a self-proclaimed sovereign citizen, a man who genuinely believes that traffic laws don't apply to him, that police officers have no authority unless he personally approves it, and that asking philosophical riddles in a courtroom is the ultimate legal strategy. And the craziest part? He chooses to represent himself in front of a live jury. Within minutes, this man derails the trial by arguing that traffic stops are commerce, that breaking a car window is an act of violence, and that he can't be arrested unless the officer can define the word traffic to his satisfaction. It's like watching a man try to speedrun a mistrial using TikTok legal advice.
Yes, I did.
all right, please have a seat. And if you would please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
You're heading back to Kitsap County, and please continue. How did you come into contact with the defendant?
We were driving northbound in the outside lane of Highway 16 from basically the Gig Harbor area. We were very close to entering back into Kitsap County, and I noticed in behind me in the inside lane of travel a white Ford dually pickup truck overtaking me at a really high rate of speed. And we were still in Pierce County at that time. And I increased my speed up to about 70 miles an hour and saw that the vehicle was still overtaking me from behind. And at that point in time, what I did was I activated my rear emergency lights in my vehicle, which are red and blue lights, as kind of a warning to the person driving the pickup truck that they needed to slow down. Joel that was driving the pickup truck, and he gave me a thumbs up with his right thumb and continued by me.
Oh, you little peasant. You gave me a thumbs up and thought you could pass me on the freeway?
And as he was pulling away from me in the inside lane, that's when I activated my radar in the same direction, moving mode with the front antenna, and observed his vehicle speed to be 71 miles per hour, and it was locked at the unit. The defendant immediately asked me if there was an emergency. And I explained to him that, again, the reasons for the traffic stop. And he explained, so the stop is based solely for money at that point in time. I told him no, the stop was about safety, and requested his driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance.
And so after you requested that information, what happened then?
He basically told me that he wasn't going to answer any legal questions without an attorney.
Were you prepared?
Right from the start, you can already tell this defendant walked into court with a strategy based entirely on confusing everyone into submission. His questions have nothing to do with the actual charge. They're more like riddle me this lines pulled from a conspiracy forum. Asking if he can be taken all the way to a jury for doing nothing is a classic sovereign citizen tactic. Try make the process sound absurd instead of acknowledging the very real actions that led to the stop. And the judge immediately recognizes it. Notice how quickly objections get sustained. The court isn't buying a single inch of this nonsense. What makes it even funnier is that he's doing this with a camera sticking out of his pocket like he's filming a vlog. This man seriously thought he was going to outsmart the judicial system using catchphrases instead of facts. It's already spiraling, and we're not even deep into the testimony yet.
Were you prepared to inflict property damage in an act of discovery?
I guess the state is just a little confused by the question.
Same. Rephrase the question.
Well, did you testify that you were prepared to break out the window of my property?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So were you prepared to break out the window in an act of discovering information for the purposes of collecting money?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you prepared to break out the window for information that would make it easier to charge bills?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you prepared to break out the window to discover information? Me, a man.
No,
You was not prepared, but you testified you were going to break out the window.
I was prepared to break out the window in order to take you into custody after advising that you were under arrest. Yes.
Okay. Is breaking out a window considered an act of violence? Okay. Did you have a warrant?
No, I did not.
Okay. Can there be an arrest without due process of law?
I don't understand your question.
Is it a danger to make an arrest without understanding the law?
Your Honor, I guess the state is objecting to the line of questioning on that particular ground. We discussed I think we discussed this partially in motion.
Yeah. Sustained.
What was your cause of action?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you need a cause of action to make an arrest?
Objection.
Rephrase your question.
Is a cause of action an essential component to authorize an arrest?
And I guess I'm objecting. I don't really understand.
Agreed. Sustained. I understand the question.
Did you have probable cause?
Yes.
Probable cause? And could you please let us know what that was?
I made a request of you when I stopped you for the 2 infractions to provide your driver's license, registration certificate for your vehicle, and your proof of vehicle insurance, liability insurance, and you failed to provide any of those items or identify yourself.
And that gives probable cause.
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Are police powers in general delegated to the police by consent of we the people based on the promise not to violate the Constitution?
This is the moment where the entire tone of the traffic stop becomes clear. The officer sees a truck speeding, gives a courtesy warning with his lights, and instead of slowing down, this man gives a thumbs up and keeps flying down the highway. That tiny gesture tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. He genuinely thinks he's above the law. It's delusion mixed with arrogance. Even worse, the officer bumps his speed up to 70 miles per hour just to confirm how fast this guy is going. And the defendant still frames the entire stop as some sort of government conspiracy. What sovereign citizens always do is twist simple, everyday law enforcement procedures into sinister motives. The officer warns him, pulls him over, explains the stop, and asks for ID. That's standard. But the defendant immediately escalates it into a debate about commerce, contracts, and his own version of constitutional law. If you've ever wondered how a basic traffic stop turns into a circus, this right here is Exhibit A.
I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question.
You understand that you no longer have any police power if you violate the Constitution.
Now, either this criminal is completely stupid or he knows. I wonder which one could it be?
With respect to the Constitution, I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question.
You were operating under your oath. You testified from the beginning. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And your oath is to the Constitution. Is that correct?
Your Honor, I would object. Your Honor, I fail to see the relevance. He's under oath here. He's sworn to tell the truth. I fail to see how this.
Sustained. You can move on, Mr. Haley.
Would you look at that? They really don't want to answer that question, do they? Move on.
You understand that violating your oath of office contract immediately strips you of any police powers.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Mike, I would like to thank you for your confession. We now have on the record that you knew that you didn't have any police power from the beginning, and ignorance of the law is no excuse, especially for an officer of the law.
Okay. This is a traffic stop, correct?
Correct.
The word traffic is defined as commerce, and
I would object, Your Honor.
Overall, yeah, I'll let at least let Mr. Haywood finish the question.
according to your testimony, your actions were based on traffic law, which includes license plates and all the documents that the person is legally required to provide, and this is all based on traffic law. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the traffic is defined as commerce.
So I guess, Your Honor, that's where I would.
Okay. Is traffic defined as commerce?
Your Honor, the defendants were requesting that this fact witness define the law. I just don't see how that's.
Objection. I'm just asking that he define his understanding of the law, because this is the whole basis. He's holding us up at a gunpoint. He needs to know what he's doing.
Mr. Morrell, if Sergeant Morrell can answer the question as to what he believes traffic to be, I'll let him do that. But if you can answer that question.
For me, traffic would be the vehicles that are moving upon our roadways in the state.
This entire exchange about breaking the window is a cornerstone of the sovereign citizen playbook. They love pretending that any lawful action an officer takes, even one required during an arrest, is some sort of violent government overreach. But listen closely. The officer clearly states that breaking the window would only occur after the defendant refused to comply with a lawful arrest. That's not violence, that's procedure. Yet the defendant reframes it like the officer was moments away from committing a war crime. He keeps asking the same question, hoping that repeating it enough times will magically create a different legal reality. But the court isn't amused. The objections keep rolling in, the judge keeps sustaining them, and the officer stays calm as ever. Meanwhile, the defendant is desperately trying to paint himself as a victim of some imagined tyranny. Spoiler, it's not working. If anything, he's proving exactly why officers sometimes do need to break windows, because people like him refuse to comply until the last possible moment.
Okay, do you understand that your definition of traffic is a layman's definition and not the legal definition of traffic?
No.
So do you understand that you're upholding a legal definition of traffic while enforcing it based upon a layman's understanding of traffic? At gunpoint.
Objection.
Sustained. Next question.
You understand that your understanding of traffic is incorrect based on a legal standard that you are enforcing at gunpoint.
Your Honor, state's just merely requesting that he take up the gunpoint. I don't see how that it's an attempt to testify here.
Rephrase your question, Mr. Haywood.
Do you realize that your understanding of traffic is incorrect based on the legal definition while you're upholding legal laws?
No, I do not realize that.
Okay. You are enforcing traffic law without understanding the definition of traffic in its legal context.
I do not believe so, no.
Okay. But you just admitted that you don't know the legal definition of traffic.
I'm not aware of the legal definition of traffic.
Okay. So then any resistance to a legal traffic definition enforced by you would be out of line because you're operating on ignorance.
I don't believe that's the case.
But you just confessed to it being the case. You don't know the legal definition of traffic. Is that correct? You just testified to that.
Yes, I do not know the legal definition of traffic.
Then you're enforcing a traffic law based on a foundation of ignorance of the legality of the traffic definition.
I was enforcing the traffic law in the state of Washington, which I have done for the last 30 plus years.
With never knowing the legal definition of traffic.
I guess that would be the case.
And this legal traffic documentation is based on the non-legal traffic understanding. Is that correct?
Your Honor, state's objection.
Rephrase your question. Sustained.
This way you made the stop because of safety and to obtain traffic documentation. That's based on the understanding of the layman's understanding of traffic and not the actual legal definition of traffic, which is what's used in courts and is the law.
I made the traffic stop based on a speed violation and a license or registration violation.
Based on your current understanding of traffic, which is not the legal one, right?
Based on my understanding of the laws in the state of Washington, yes.
I'm talking about specifically the meaning of traffic, because the whole law of the laws that you're using revolve around the understanding of the word traffic.
In the state of Washington, you're required to obey the speed limits, and you're also required to have your vehicle registered and have that plate displayed. And that was what the basis of my traffic stop was.
And that's based on traffic law, right?
Correct.
Of which you don't know the understanding or the meaning of traffic.
I do not know the exact definitions of those things. No, I do not. I could not give them back to you verbatim.
Okay, so you were enforcing based on one principle, which is ignorance, but you were enforcing based on a legal definition, but you were presenting it in a layman's definition.
I do not believe that I was enforcing out of ignorance. No, that would not be accurate.
Okay, but you confess that you don't know the legal definition.
I do not know. I cannot sit here and tell you the legal.
This is where the defendant really shows just how far removed from reality he is. He keeps asking the officer about constitutional oaths, contract obligations, and whether violating them removes police power, none of which has anything to do with a traffic stop. The officer isn't a constitutional scholar. He's doing his job, and the judge knows exactly what's happening. The defendant is trying to drag the trial into philosophical territory where he thinks he can win by sounding profound. But every time he tries it, the judge shuts it down instantly. The funniest part is his personal voiceover, where he acts like the court is afraid to answer his questions. No, they're not afraid. They're just irrelevant to the case. Sovereign citizens confuse legal terminology with magic spells, believing that if they say the right words, the system collapses. But courts don't operate on vibes and YouTube logic. They operate on facts. And right now, the facts are not on his side.
Identify the victim of this crime.
Objection, Your Honor.
An arrest is an act of force. Is that correct?
It can be, yes.
I need somebody against their will is an act of force. Is that correct?
Yes, it can be.
And if done without the authority of law, that would be an act of kidnapping. Is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay, but if that force is used without the authority of law, it is a crime. Is that correct?
Yes.
You testified that law enforcement should be held to the highest standards following the law. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Is it possible, without knowing the legal meanings of words backed by threats of violence, that you could be a danger to society without knowing the definitions?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
I'll change that to a little more understandable. By enforcing laws containing words you do not know the meaning of makes you a danger to society. Is that correct?
Here we go. The most classic sovereign citizen myth of them all. Traffic equals commerce. They love this one because they found an outdated or misinterpreted definition somewhere and decided it invalidates modern law. The problem? Courts don't use 1800s dictionary definitions to determine what a traffic stop is. Legal definitions come from statutes, case law, and legislative context, not random linguistic trivia. The defendant tries to force the officer into admitting a definition he's never heard before, and surprise, it fails. Even the judge steps in to clarify that the officer is not required to define statutory language. The defendant's entire argument is built on the idea that if he can trap the officer in a semantic technicality, the laws magically disappear. But that's not how any of this works. What's happening here isn't legal analysis, it's intellectual cosplay.
If we remove you, the crime goes away.
Objection.
Sustained.
True or false? If we keep you in the story, the crime stays complete with the victim.
Objection.
Sustained.
True or false? You are an essential component for a crime that I'm accused of to exist.
Objection.
Sustained.
You were prepared to smash out the window because I didn't pay the plaintiff money. Is that correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You were prepared to bust out the window and violently destroy my property because you wanted me to pay the plaintiff more money.
Objection.
It's saying you want them to sign a question.